Happy Wellness Wednesday, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of the IDCA Wellness for Tech podcast, where we focus on empowering current and emerging technology leaders and those inspired by technology to lead well from within. My name is Jyoti Dugar, the Chaos Guru, and I'm proud and excited to be your host for this unique and truly revolutionary podcast, a first of its kind. As you know, if you've listened to the previous podcast, I am a C-suite IT executive. Having been in the industry for decades, I understand all too well how chaotic and stressful and really high pressure the technology field can be. So I'm truly excited to bring inspirational leaders in this space to help all of us and all of you lead well from within. Today, I'm honored to be joined by our very special guest, Richard Turner. Richard is the director of Employees Health, a company that's focused on well-being and whose mission is to help people improve their overall wellness by educating people on leading healthier and happier lifestyles. Richard uses his knowledge as a personal trainer, a degree in sports science and coaching, and in addition, further learning to help his customers. His personal mission is to educate people to make practical changes to their daily lifestyles, to improve their mind and body. He also believes that the behavior and mindset we have every day impacts our physical health, our mental health, our overall well-being, and our performance in and out of work. As you can see, I am truly grateful to have Richard on our podcast episode today. Welcome, Richard. We are thrilled to have you.
Hey, how are you?
I am doing great. So I know you're in the UK, which is also very different from our previous episodes. So yeah. I would love to get more into, jump right in here. I know you have a lot to say, and there's a lot of great things your company is doing. So in your role, and actually, maybe we could start by talking about how did you come up with the concept for your company, and how did you get started?
I suppose it was kind of an accident, I guess. I started what now is Employees Health in January 2019 off of the back of leaving a personal training role in a gym. I left there unhappy with what they were offering, and so I was like, okay, I want to offer this, and I'll offer education or my skill set to people. And someone said, why don't you try to aim this towards businesses? They're looking for support. I mean, obviously I'd always been focused towards individuals. Why don't you try doing this for employees and to help businesses make their people fitter, healthier, and thrive a bit better at work? And so I did that. I took my journey into that. And now, 3.75 way through this year, we are much different, much more vast business than I ever thought we would be. So yeah, it was a bit of an accident, but I'm very glad I got into this business, very glad I'm here. And now the service we provide is something I'm actually really excited about.
That's great. Maybe there are no accidents. It could be just divine timing, and someone gave you a bright idea and you took it and ran with it, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, good accident.
So can you tell us about in your company, how do you foster and empower, employees of other organizations to prioritize their health and wellness? Do you focus on their leadership first, or do you do programs for all staff? How does that work?
We have Employees Health has a variety of different services, and I suppose it's led by the needs of the business. So I don't go in there and say you need to do this, but I try to work with the person I'm talking to, whether that's a HR director, business owner, blah blah blah, whoever we're talking to try to understand what it is they're really after. Sometimes they have a focus. They say, look, we want to work on mental health, and we really would like mental health first aiders, or we want to do education around sleep. So they have that focus there already. So we just have to find what the best service is within that. Other times you have to kind of work with them to understand what it is they're looking for, whether it's kind of internal support and internal culture change, or whether that's people improvement, looking at people's health and well-being, the habits they have. But for me, it comes down to the basics. as there's two different elements to well-being for me. Sorry, is there's one which is well-being at work, which is what the workplace does for people's well-being, and it's the business's well-being, and then there's the other which is the well-being of people. And if you're trying to improve either of those, they're both very different. Looking at the well-being of individuals, for me, there's two elements of this, right? It's the behaviours we have every day and the habits we take to look after our health and well-being, along with the mindsets we go into every exercise or every activity or every conversation, challenge, situation to lead out a happier lifestyle. The well-being of work is very much an internal change to impact our employees, right? And so the culture needs to be good. You need good psychological safety. You need to have good, thriving team economics, a place where people can go and be themselves and thrive. All this kind of stuff is really important. And so it's very much looking at both elements to be able to support someone best.
So do you, is your primary focus with organizations or with individual people, or is it kind of a combination of both?
The primary focus for employees' health is the employees. It's a business. It's we help educate groups of people in a holistic way in how they can improve their health and well-being. I have the ability through my experience to be able to support people outside of that employee's health element, or even through employees' health on a one-to-one basis to make better change.
Great. And I know people can't see the video, but I see a poster behind you that says employees' health, workplace well-being, and there's multiple different, I would say, aspects to it. So it's like mental health, well-being, physical health, financial health, lifestyle, and nutrition.
Yeah, we always say we kind of work on the 4 pillars. The 4 pillars for me are mental health, physical health, the environmental, your social well-being, as well as your financial well-being. We work on those 4 pillars as like our base, because if we can, they're the kind of keys which really affect our overall well-being of a business, as well as our overall well-being as a human being.
Very interesting. So when we talk about financial health is actually something that I would say most people don't really think about when you think about well-being, wellness, and things of that sort. You don't really think about financial health, although I know all of us know how important your financial health is to life, because if you're not successful in that area, you might not be successful in all these other areas as well.
Exactly. I know the statistics in the UK show that financial worry is the biggest cause of stress in the UK. So having an understanding of what you can do, even if it's like, we have to understand financial well-being is not only the money you get paid, but how you also manage that, the outgoings, and how you look after them, and how you feel about that position. Like the statistics, I think it was an American study actually, which did a study that once you've earned the safe living income, anything above that doesn't really affect your happiness. Gotcha. And I think when they did the study, it was like $75,000, which equates to about 50K in the UK, or it did equate then. Obviously, it's a bit different now. So yeah, the financial part of it is an important part, which is now, especially in the UK, we're having this cost of living crisis going on at the moment. So it's important that we are looking to educate and help people within that area as well.
Wow. So you're taking a holistic approach to even the financial health, and not just looking at it as how much money can I earn, but how do I sustain that money, and what does money mean to me? How much money does it really take to make someone happy? And, and is that really what's making them happy?
Yeah, exactly. We go back to that mindset of like happiness comes first, then the success comes second, rather than the financial success comes first, which never leads to the happiness afterwards. We look at leading via happiness, financial success comes in second.
That's a really interesting concept there. Yeah. So among all the different things that you do for companies as well as individuals, do you have any ways of showing that your techniques or practices or programs are effective? Do you do any sort of surveys, like before and after, or how do you show that this is an effective way of employees prioritizing their well-being?
I mean, this can be a tough thing to measure. We can so some of our programs will have a survey and a measurement within that. So I have a 12-week wellbeing and performance program which I deliver, and in the beginning of that we ask people and we measure people's wellbeing, work-life balance, and lifestyle, and we measure that at the end once they've learned everything and put these practices or habits into place, and see how then they fare between the two. So that's one way of doing it. But ultimately, if you're just doing like one-off workshops or trying to make culture changes, it can be quite a tough thing to measure. And so the only way you can measure that is with the internal measurements and HR kind of processes you have in place. So surveying as a whole, retention, sickness absence, all that kind of stuff is all internal and stuff we don't as a business kind of get our hands into.
Okay.
So it's very much through a business as an internal practice, and being able to work with them. Are your people taking more time off sick, or actually are people? What's your end net turnover for the year? Is it improved? Are you finding people more productive? Are you speaking to people? Are they happy? All those kind of signs or signals and questions you can ask to really get down into the nitty gritty of it, I guess.
Got it. And I know behind every successful person, there's always stories and experiences that have either inspired you to be where you are today and to do amazing things for the world, or there's learning lessons or some sort of event or something that happened that kind of pushed you in a certain direction. So I know you mentioned, somebody had brought this idea of starting a wellness-oriented focused company, but can you talk about any experiences in your life that have shaped you into who you are today? Or was there any times where you felt awakened to a new reality or changed the way you do things in life from that?
I mean, there's probably been many. Well, I'm just about to turn 33, so I mean, I'm still relatively young, but also relatively old.
That is the first I've heard of someone wanting to be old.
Yeah, I'm not saying I want to be old. I'm just saying. But I mean, I feel like I've been in business outside of university for 12, 13 years nearly, or 12 years. And so there's been lots of learnings. And if I look back at kind of my life, there is big parts. Having a weekend dad made a big impact on you. Having learning difficulties had a big impact on me, and some of the learnings I had to go through to understand how my brain works, how I performed best, and how I focus and thrive it was another part. Trying to run a business, you learn so much through this, and a business within wellbeing and having an interest in psychology means you're continuously trying to learn how the brain works, how people thrive and run at optimum. But I also had an experience, one of my mentors, when I first started going to the gym, and kind of one of the reasons why I am where I am today, he completed suicide in 2018, 3 or 4 months before I started my business. Wow. And ever since then, my understanding of mental health has changed. And I was on a podcast actually just the other day, and the person I was interviewing spoke about mental health like this. Mental health doesn't affect you until you're affected by it. And so actually it really resonated with me, because up until 2018, until that incident, I never really understood what mental health was. I kind of looked at it, and I'll be open and honest with this, probably as a potential weakness of somebody. Why are people not doing this? Why are people not doing that? It's so easy to look after your mental health, but actually I didn't understand it until that happened. Until somebody I thought was happy, healthy, had that lifestyle of going to the gym, being active, being around a social group and having a good bond and belonging of a group to go and do that. That really opened my eyes up to what mental health was. I wanted to dive deeper into the psychology of it, and then become more of an advocate on suicide, have these conversations, try to understand exactly what it is that leads people down that path.
Wow, I've never heard anyone that saying before either. So mental health doesn't affect you until you're affected by it.
Yeah.
Um, so are there ways that each of us can be more aware of how it's affecting us so that we don't come to that point and then feel like maybe we don't have any other choice but to do something drastic like your mentor?
For me, I think it's continuous self-learning. When you're in that element of when it's more like looking at suicide and depression, I think that's a quite tough question to answer. It's being very self-conscious and conscious of mental health as a whole. Always wanted to learn about psychology, how the brain works, how we work best as human beings, and being able to evaluate your situation continuously. One of the best things I ever did was started gratitude, and it made me look at life, made me look at what we do and how we are. I think that's really helped have those conversations. And I think mental health now is before 4 years ago. I mean, COVID really did increase the knowledge around mental health and poor mental health.
Yes.
But I think up until that stage, it probably wasn't. I mean, people are more open to understanding mental health, and they know that we all have it. But now people are more kind of conscious of actually this is what good mental health is. I know when I feel happiest, I know when I feel saddest. But how do we stop that sadness turning into depression and prolonged sadness, I guess?
Right. Yeah. COVID really, I think, was a blessing in disguise in many different ways. And I think one of those ways was, I think before COVID, at least for my own personal life, it was just life by default. Especially if you're a working parent, or me being a working mom, and I have 3 kids, and it was just okay, go to work, come back, take the kids to activities, classes, come back, and eat lunch, you get the kids ready for bed, and then like repeat, the next day, and the weekend comes, and you're just focused on just you're just staying busy, and you weren't, or at least I wasn't really living life by design. It was more like by default. And, especially if you're in a relationship, it just kind of turned into a comfort zone, and you're not really trying to maximize the potential of the relationship or the kids or yourself or your purpose. You're just, kind of just,
by default.
Right. By default, you felt like that hamster just running the wheel. Okay, this is how life is. And that's what everybody does. And for me, I think COVID was really personal because it completely just wiped out any concept I had of life by default, and really changed the way I work into creating a life by design, and not taking any moment for granted. And also, I think you might disagree, but you really can't plan every single thing out in your life. I think we all learned that from COVID, right? Who would have thought? We're going to go into this massive pandemic for 2 years. But I think what it did bring out in people, like you said, was accepting people for who they are, not trying to change them into who you want them to be, and also accepting yourself for who you are, and not feeling like you have to be someone, you have to fulfill somebody else's idea of you.
I think COVID, and especially in the UK, opened up people's eyes. I think it did 2 things, because you had people which still had to go to work. You had those frontline workers which had to go work in the NHS. For us, it was in the hospitals and the NHS, or on the streets as policemen or policewomen.
Mm-hmm.
And people like that. So these people then had to kind of cover extra shifts because people were catching COVID. So these people were working overtime and lost interest and lost excitement within their jobs. But then there was other people which had to manage working from home or furloughed. And I don't know if you had furlough over there in the US, but basically people were getting paid not to work because it was covered by the government, all this kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
And actually had a good balance of being around the family, had that time off, living life the way they wanted to live life, although we were in lockdown. And so people began to put themselves first again. Even with the working from home, they could put themselves first. So they had the time to sleep more, get outside, be active, and they were encouraged to because we had that 1 hour a day or that one time a day where he's allowed to be outside and be active. So people began to focus on themselves. So you had two sides of this: people which were getting burnt out, and then people which were working and enjoying and putting themselves first. And now you're seeing the end of that now, where people are putting themselves first at work. They understand that I don't have to work super hard, and actually I enjoyed not working super hard, and actually I don't mind taking a bit of cut in money if I enjoy my life more. And for me that's a big win, because like we only live once. Why would you want to live once for somebody else's paycheck, as well as why would you want to live once and not be happy either?
Exactly. Yeah, I think so for the US, like we weren't as strict as other countries. They discouraged people being out and about when the most significant part of COVID was happening, but there wasn't any real rules and you're not allowed to be out for the most part. But what we did face a lot was, working parents now had to become an expert teacher and figure out everything for their children while also having full-time jobs. Why isn't the technology working? And
Wi-Fi,
or
calls.
Right, or the teachers will kind of they were trying their best, but they were also in this whole pandemic themselves. So it was like, oh, well, you can teach your kids like these topics. And we're like, well, we're not teachers. Although the parents are the, children's first teachers, but we're not experts on these subject areas. So it was, I had a full-time job. I had 3 kids at home. I also had 2 side businesses. So I had no second to rest. Yeah. But what I was truly surprised, or maybe not surprised, but was interesting was I've been trying to promote employee well-being, wellness, prioritizing, mental, physical, spiritual well-being for the last 5 years. And especially in the technology field and cybersecurity, where, I had spent 20 years of my life, and where burnout, stress, overwhelm was happening everywhere, leaders, but also in staff. And no one really took it seriously. They just thought it was a different approach, and they thought it was something interesting, but, no one took it seriously. And then COVID hit, and I literally had, hundreds of organizations, and everyone that I had given some sort of talk or speech or keynote to, they all started contacting me. Oh, this is what you were talking about. So it's interesting when you present a problem that's going to come, but they don't recognize it. When the problem comes, then they reach back out to you.
Yeah, for sure.
Richard, I know every successful person usually has some sort of ritual that they practice, whether it's a morning ritual, afternoon, throughout the day, or a night ritual. Can you tell us about any sort of rituals or practices that you do to adjust to all the chaos that you face in your day?
I suppose I have a few, very much based on a lifestyle I lead, I guess. Rituals are obviously exercise. It's going to be a big one, but my main ritual is like my nighttime routine, which sometimes can get affected. I don't lead, like, unfortunately I can't live by it every single day, but when I'm at home I can live by it, and that's 30 minutes before bed, having some ashwagandha as a supplement, followed by 30 minutes of reading every night. I've got one of those Lumi lights, which is like an alarm which reduces its light before half an hour before it switches off and I go to bed. So that's one of the key rituals for me is that element of sleep, which I found is a big impact. And gratitude is probably the other ritual where I can. Most days, let's say 5 days out of 7, I'm practicing gratitude on journaling. With my kind of business planning, so being able to use that journal to look at my weekly plan, seeing how life's going, what can I improve, what's been good, all that kind of stuff.
Very cool. So when you say exercise, is there a particular time in the day that you find that you can maximize the benefit of the exercise?
Not overly. It's more so getting it in when I feel I can. So normally I work first just because I want to have that. I'm obviously running my own business means I want to be productive in the morning. A lot of my focus goes towards improving the business continuously, trying to improve what we offer here. So normally I'm an afternoon trainer. I train between 3 and 6 o'clock in the afternoon, depending on what life throws at me, really.
Got it. And when you say gratefulness journal, so do you try to focus on, like 10 minutes of just free writing, or do you kind of focus on, the number of things that you're grateful for in the day? How do you?
Yeah, so the journal I do, and I actually have my own journal as well. I created my own journal, and that's 3 things I'm grateful for. What's this day going to look forward? So the morning routine's always 3 things I'm grateful for. How's the day going to be great? And a positive affirmation. And then the evening element of that is what's been my good deed for today? How can I improve myself or the next day? And what great things have happened today? So it's just positive mindsets, positive thoughts to counteract those negative ones, right?
Great. So, along that same lines, along with rituals, I also noticed that successful people always have some sort of wellness hacks that they use. Maybe they don't really think about it as a wellness hacks, but if you start talking to them, you'll start to understand. This is how they, this is how they replenish and rejuvenate and refuel themselves throughout the day while they're in the middle of chaos. So, and I know you have a wellness company, so and you run programs, or you're constantly developing new tactics. Can you offer the audience any sort of 1 or 2 wellness hacks that you feel like would truly help people?
Wellness hacks for during the day, or wellness hacks as a lifestyle?
I would say during the day. So while they're navigating all the different stressors in their life, but what is something that they can do right in the middle of it that would help them, bring themselves to like a calm state?
I suppose for me, is making sure you have those little breaks. So whether that's making a cup of coffee, making sure you're going through some water. If you get no sunlight, then try and get outside and get some sunlight. But my main one I do is I always spend about 45 minutes making some sort of lunch and having time out away from the computer to disengage, to reset the brain whilst making food, especially when I'm working from home. Obviously, that changes when I'm out, but I'm normally outside. I'm normally meeting people. For me, that's a bit of a re-energizer. So speaking to people for me is how I normally recharge.
Mm.
So
very nice.
Yeah.
So as we all know, we're all pretty much connected to technology around the clock, but especially those in the technology industry, we're really connected to technology 24/7. And I've noticed that even children, as mine are 5, 8, and 11 right now, and I have to really struggle to get them off of the technology, even if it's for a good purpose. It could be educational games, or it could be schoolwork. Can you offer any tips on how can we disengage from technology?
How can we disengage?
Yeah.
That's a good question. There's a few things within technology which, obviously, technology is a great thing, right? For many people, especially people for working in it, but for people which don't work in it and who spend too much time on it, it can be a bit of a detrimental, but also have this positive effect as well. So understanding what the negatives and positives are, and how you can limit that negative. For me, trying to limit the amount of negative news or negative time or negative information I see is an important one. So I don't watch the news anymore. Try to take away the negative news on my social media feeds. I don't get notifications of news or that kind of stuff. So that's an important one. And then once you understand what's important to you, you can then begin to go, actually, I don't want to do that anymore. So if it is, I don't want to be distracted because I want to work harder or spend more time in the gym, or I'm on my phone for 6-7 hours on average every day, then it's being able to get away from that. And actually, if that's an importance to you, then you're going to be more likely to do that.
So do you keep do you have a time of the day where it's like gadget free or technology free, where you kind of put all of
No.
your gadgets, somewhere else in the house that
Yeah,
you
no,
don't?
I wish I could. Wish I did. I wish I did. I wouldn't say I'm a master at this yet, but because obviously, when you run your own business, you need to be near your emails, wherever it is, because you're kind of always on. But just being able to balance that in the evenings when you're watching movies and stuff like that, you can get a bit better at taking away that technological time. And actually, I'm really good when I'm with people. That's probably one of the benefits of why I like being around people. Is actually, you're not on your phone as much. You're not looking for you're not aimlessly scrolling through the social media feeds. So yeah, but I haven't got any hacks. I know there are some hacks, but I even use my phone. This is a bad one, but I even use my phone at night time. But I use it for an audio to help me sleep.
I was actually going to ask you that. Do you do some sort of like sleep meditations or have some sort of like binaural beats
Yeah,
going
so I have an
on?
audio. So it's something like some. Can't remember what the title of this audio is, but it's kind of works whilst you're sleeping. So it hits your I can't remember the words.
Subconscious mind.
Yeah, your subconscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, okay, so I keep that on, but that means my phone's in my bedroom. I
Right.
can't get rid of the phone even at night time. So there is some negatives to it, but also I find the positives outweigh it. And actually, I'm quite good at going, okay, sleep time now because I know that's important. I don't need to be in my phone.
Right. It's definitely a challenge.
Yeah.
So as we're wrapping up, is your primary focus, is there a certain age group that you generally like working with, or that your programs are geared towards, or is it for all ages?
The program, obviously, the business is focused towards all ages of any shape, size, gender, wherever it is. It's focused towards just well-being, people well-being, right? So we all have our own individual issues, or challenges, not issues, challenges every single day. The program, the Optimal Wellbeing and Performance Program, focuses on just that. How do we improve our health and well-being through the habits we have every single day? And the business will help businesses and individuals educate and learn how to do that as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
As an individual, I like working with, to be fair, different types. I like working with sports people because I come from a background of sport, so I like being able to work with them to improve their performance, and they're really motivated people. But I also like working with people I can build good relationships with. And so, yeah, no, not really. I work with anybody if they need that support. Whether it's somebody just wanting to stay consistent or somebody needing to make some changes. It's really great seeing people which go from who lose 5 or 6 stone and feel different and feel more energized and now have behaviors which are positively impacting them. And I love hearing those like transformation stories. So yeah, everybody really.
Everybody, great. So is there anything you can offer, particularly to our younger generation, to empower them to prioritize their self-care and wellness, no matter what field that they go into, and to really focus on themselves versus, how to fit into environments like I think, my generation try to do?
I think that's probably the biggest problem, right? When individuals are so individual now. Actually, the biggest thing you can do, and if we look back to the start of the human race, is we were tribes, right? We were human beings, part of groups and communities. Actually, if you want to be the best version of yourself and to be the best human, make sure you've got a good tribe behind you. Make sure you have a good friendship base, you're a good social network. For me, that is probably the most important. Make sure you can communicate well with others, and you can work as part of a team. The people which work best as teams are the people which achieve the most, and actually are the people which are happiest and healthiest. I remember when I was, one of the things we talk about in my program is social connection, and in that there's a study that shows you that people which had more social interaction were healthier than people which had bad habits such as smoking and drinking. Wow. Social interaction has a huge impact on our mindset, our bodies, all this kind of stuff. So that's probably my number one for young people. I think because of the way the world is with social media, with the rise of technology, we are so much more individual. We play games by ourselves with friends on computers. We're on social media comparing ourselves to others. We aren't connecting like we used to, right? We aren't going over to see friends and play in a park.
Right.
We are doing that inside our house by ourselves on a computer. So build that base level of fundamental tribes.
That's a great point. I think this is the first I've heard the concept of tribes and social connections, but this is the first time I think this was brought up as this is crucial to just happiness as a human being is having a good tribe. I would say be careful of getting involved with the wrong kind of crowd. But having tribes is so important, and support groups. And for I think those of you out there that are trying to figure out maybe if you don't have a tribe today, but there's so much out there. You could actually maximize the use of technology by joining meetup groups or finding a hobby that you like doing, and getting together with like-minded or people that are interested in the same kinds of things as you. And it's all free, right? You don't have to spend a whole lot of money trying to do something, and that can truly make a huge difference, especially if you're going through something in your life and you're there's so many groups out there now. There's mindset groups. There's groups for divorced people. There's hiking groups. There's arts groups. I think if you're interested in something, there's a group out there.
I was just about to say the same thing, right? There must be something that somebody is interested in, which they can go, actually, there must be something, reading groups, anything that wherever you find interest in, there'll be somebody out there. But don't do it over a computer.
Yeah.
Do it it's nice to build relationships. It's nice to build relationships online with your colleagues and stuff, but it doesn't beat being in person with somebody, having that banter, physical reactions and body language you receive from all of that, and being part of something, like being part of a small tribe, being part of a large community, being part of a really large entity. All three of those roles have huge impacts on us. We feel like part of something, and that's huge in our mental well-being.
Exactly. Thank you so much for joining us today, Richard. This has been truly my pleasure in speaking with you and learning so much about everything that you're doing and everything that you're doing for the UK. Could you please tell the audience where they can find you if they'd like to reach out to you?
Yeah, so you can find me. My main place I hang out, and in a virtual sense is LinkedIn. And you can find me at Richard Turner. Obviously, Employees Health will be my strapline for that. Or you can find me on Instagram or Facebook under Employees Health. So yeah.
Okay. And any last words of wisdom before we close today's session for the technology community out there, or really anyone that you'd like to
Yeah, no, I suppose it's probably just making sure if you're a business that you're looking after your people. Your people will work most optimally when they are most optimal. So when they're happy and healthiest, they're going to be most productive for you. You have a sense of a role on that, and you can support. We unfortunately don't educate people in sometimes doing that as we grow up. So just being able to provide some of the education can make a huge difference. So if you want some help in learning about some of the basics of well-being, just give me a shout.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. Well, that's a wrap, folks. Thank you so much for listening today. We will have the link to the podcast as well as Richard's information below, and see you all the third Wednesday of every month to focus on your wellness and leading your life from within.